This episode of This Agile Life has been brought to you by BrilliantAgile.com, providing Agile and Scrum training, consultancy, and personnel.
BrilliantAgile.com. Done right, it's brilliant.
Recorded on Monday, November 19th, 2013 in St. Louis, Missouri. This Agile Life, episode 25. 4 estimates and a Gantt chart to go. Welcome to This Agile Life, a podcast about what it's like to be agile in the real world. Hello everyone, I'm the host of This Agile Life, John Sextro, and joining me today are my 2 co-hosts, Mr. Amos King.
Hey, John, how's it going today?
Good, Amos.
I was doing really good until I got here and saw Tice's face in the phone call.
Well, you're not even really looking at the phone call because you're too busy playing stupid Candy Crush Saga.
Playing Candy Crush because my daughter downloaded it. This is not cool. I don't normally play games, and my ADD will take over in about a day, and I'll never play it again.
Yeah. Well, the upside is that King, the maker of Candy Crush Saga, they are agile.
That is pretty awesome. And my last name's King, so they're even better.
Okay.
Hey, Amos, it's Jason. I'm sorry, I'm going to be the voice of reason here because I have a special pill that will solve all your problems with Candy Crush. It is Gartner's newest discipline they've talked about, enterprise attention management, EAM, coming soon to a Agile team near you.
So
I have some people that we used to work with that could really use some of that.
Yeah, well, actually, if you want to, I don't know if that's going to make the discussion queue tonight, but all kidding aside, information is around us everywhere, and if you do run a business, how you manage that is interesting. And not to sidetrack where we are, but something that Avis, yourself, and John, and we were all at one point working together in an environment where we were not allowed to have distractions. Remember we had to put our cell phones in a lockbox and all that stuff. Interesting.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Well, was it?
I didn't really use my phone much anyway.
So I guess the only where I'm going with that is saying that in today's day and age where we have Gartner saying that we need to have an enterprise attention management practice because people find it hard to focus on what they're trying to do successfully, it's somewhat refreshing to say, there are environments out there where people value face-to-face communication.
Why is the enterprise so much like the government and they got to regulate every damn thing until we can't do anything on our own without somebody telling us that we can wipe our own ass?
Well, because at the end of the day, and if you really want to get at it, do you guys know about Pomodoro?
I love Pomodoro, but I wouldn't ever tell anybody that they have to do it.
Okay, but it's a different way to manage your time. So I think in today's society and in today's technology space where there are so many capabilities out there, you got mobility that has everything everywhere. Sometimes you need to take a step back and just breathe and say, hey, what am I doing right now? Am I being successful at what I'm doing? Am I focused enough? Have I put together enough of a plan that I know what I need to do? And then really use that to guide what you're doing.
No, I haven't, because I'm playing Candy Crush.
So that's what I'm saying. Stop. Or guess what? Get your tomato timer out. Set it to 25 minutes. Give yourself 25 minutes. Take a break, and let's move on.
All right, I'm getting out my paper, which means I'm ready to go.
I haven't even introduced Tyson. You guys are already arguing.
So what I don't.
We're not arguing. We're not arguing. I like Tice.
We had an opportunity to have a physical confrontation at the last episode, and we didn't do that. Mainly because you weren't there, John. I think you would have brought it on.
You guys hugged it out.
So now we're all separated by space, and we'll just have to fight virtually.
Usually whenever I see Amos, I get a big hug, so.
Because I love people.
Yeah.
You guys are all awesome.
Okay, let me take a brief moment to introduce the second co-host for the show tonight, Mr. Jason Tice.
Thank you, John. I've already made my presence known, so I think we could go on.
Yes, you did make your presence known. Let me just tell you that you guys did a nice job recording the last episode, but you guys are some talking over one another people.
We like that. And on top of that,
yes.
when you're in the same room and you don't have this beautiful thing called Skype, of which for those of you that don't know, and we value feedback from our customers, we are attempting to use Skype tonight since John, our scientist, has told us that it has superior audio quality to Google or Google Hangouts. So if you think so, let us know. If you don't think so, you can let us know that, because I will share, for those of you that don't know what goes on behind the curtains here at This Agile Life, it took us 25 minutes of Amos complaining and having to restart Skype over and over and over again and apply updates so we could actually bring this to you this evening. So there's room for improvement there, Amos. Learn how to properly.
Also that we could have video and see each other that our listeners aren't going to get at all.
So
that's true.
Is that a feature toggle from our last episode where we just turned that off?
We can turn off video.
I think it has a lot to do with planning. Like when you plan a blog for 2 years to come out and then you finally come out with it, maybe we should have planned and picked our minimal marketable feature, which would be sound.
Whoa.
Really?
The gloves are off. The gloves are off early.
So John, you're the moderator tonight. So what can we what are we going to talk about?
Allow me to moderate then. We are going to speak a little bit about planning and how much planning is enough planning. Is planning agile? What amount of planning is agile? What kind of planning is agile? And any other reason and way that I can get Amos and Jason to fight and argue with each other. So let's just kick it off. So
unfortunately, I think you're going to find out that Tyson and I agree a lot on a lot of this stuff.
Good. Well, that's a positive thing when I can play devil's advocate as the moderator. But let's start off with, you've already kind of picked the scab there, Amos.
Well, so I have two. I have two that have occurred within the last 24 hours that we can go to town on. So, Amos, do we want to talk about Jim Highsmith or do we want to talk about my blog?
Well, I always want to talk about you, Tice, so I think that's where we should start.
Okay. So the story of the blog is I finally, just 1 hour ago, I finally turned on a blog. And this is something I've been saying I want to do for a while. I've talked about it on the podcast. If you guys have listened to the podcast, it's like, Jason, where can we find you online? John says it every time. And I'm like, nowhere, because I have a problem there. So I finally have a blog up for which I can't I've been talking about it for years. Finally said I would do it. Can't with the concept actually back in August at the Agile Alliance conference in terms of a creative concept. And I've been kind of working on it just a little bit. Maybe I could have used Pomodoro. Maybe I could have used a little bit more planning. But I finally got it done. It took me from August all the way till November to get it done. But hey, it's there. I got a post up. I got a whole backlog of content coming. It's going to be awesome. And I think it's great. Amos does not agree, though. So what is your beef, Amos?
No, I don't have a problem with it, except for the fact that it took you 2 years. Like, I can't argue. Your blog looks way better than mine. Mine blog is ugly. But my minimal marketable
My blog
feature,
is out-of-the-box WordPress.
well, it still looks better than mine.
It's because it has words like enterprise in it.
My minimal feature set was I want to be able to write it when I'm offline. I want to be able to use Markdown, and I want it to be out on the web. And that was it. And then later I added, people might want my email address and stuff and be able to get to old things. So my blog is very minimal. It's kind of ugly. It's black and white. And there's not a lot to it.
Amos?
But it took me like 10 minutes from the time I decided what I was doing to where I had the blog out.
So you had a blog. Now let's talk about some tech details. It is what's it? I mean, is it your own app? Is it WordPress? What's it?
There's a program called Jekyll, which generates it's a static site generator. And I said a bunch of times, thanks Craig for getting me into that last week. I write Markdown in a text editor. I check it in on GitHub, and then it appears. And I actually use GitHub to host, so I have no host cost or anything like that. I set a CNAME file in GitHub and point my domain name at GitHub, and then I'm done.
Okay. So it's the Git strategy. So see, to me, I took a different approach, and I stepped back and I thought about, what do I really want to do with the blog? Who's my audience? What's my messaging strategy? Is there a spin? What's the name of the blog? Then I said, okay, fine, I got that done. Then I kind of poked around and I looked at some of the platforms that were available. not actually. I looked at the GitHub platform, but then I kind of said I wanted to do more of a kind of a writer centric approach.
Wait, Tice, can we say what your blog address is? Mine's dirtyinformation.com, and then you give yours right now, so that while we're looking at this, people can bring them up side by side, and they can see what we're discussing.
Well, they can compare the quality. So my blog just launched is theagilefactor.com. So yes, it is Bill O'Reilly themed. O'Reilly Factor, talking points and commentary or thought-provoking commentary talking about Agile and Lean, which is kind of the concept. Say if you don't know the history of the O'Reilly Factor on the Fox News channel, I'm going to ask you to put your politics aside and simply look at the broadcast concept, because it's been the number one rated program in cable news in its time block and also in its genre for over a decade. And it's all about taking very complex issues, kind of like Agile, and helping break them down and people understand them better so they can make their own decisions. And something that I've encountered, especially as I've learned more about, really the technical elements of Agile processes, how to scale Agile processes, how to align Agile processes and teams across an enterprise, there's a lot of misunderstandings and there's a lot of learning that needs to occur. So that's where I'm hoping to go with the blog.
So you did most of your learning in a year without actually having any real world experience, nothing out in the field. You were just gathering information.
No, I mean, I've gathered information from coaching to the point that, again, you could say, when do you start? Like, I have a content backlog of topics that I'll share, has at least 40 different topics in it that I want to write about and focus on that are relevant from, I'll say, activities I have done within the last 3 months. So,
Jason,
the fact is that's a backlog. So I have a backlog that's been sitting around there. It's getting longer because, I'm adding to it probably at a faster rate than I'm actually pulling from it. And so is that good or bad?
So what's the responsible max size of a backlog? Like, when does it become unmanageable? I don't know. We have very different reasons for why we took the longer approach or the shorter approach. I just wanted something out there and I didn't care. And I thought, I'll just change it as I go. And then I got to the point that after it got out there, I said, you know what? This is good enough for me. I don't really care.
This is perfect, right? Because this is two approaches.
But I want to challenge my friend Amos here with, right off the back, a classical enterprise architecture dilemma. So Amos, you go out there and, okay, you did yours a little differently. So for the purpose of discussion, I'm going to change what you did. Let's say you went to Blogger. You get a Blogger psycho and you like it. It's run by Google. You're locked into Google's API. Google manages your data. Google puts their ads on your site. You can't really customize it. Your options are limited. But you get your blog going. You say, finally, you know what? I want to cut the cord. I want to get out of Blogger and I want to get to some other platform that's open. And then you look and you say, you know what? I can't easily do that because the data that I've created is locked down in that platform.
There's a problem with that argument, Jason, because a lot of those things that you said are not true. Your data is not locked down, because I use Blogger for my site. Google does not force ads onto your page, and there's no problem migrating it to another site.
How about Slogger?
Okay.
You're using Slogger, this fake blogging tool. It's very proprietary, and you can't get your stuff out of it, and you're looking.
We know they're out there, guys. So
yes, that's what I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is, Amos, you were just go, or John, you're gonna go put it on Blogger, go, and Jason's gonna say stop. Before I go, I'm gonna do a little bit of a little bit of planning. I'm gonna think about what makes sense.
2 years, a little bit.
That's a lot of planning.
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to take this from the strategic planning phase to what I'm going to call the actionable planning phase. So,
oh Lord,
got a video palm in the face from
you got face palmed. Face palm.
Well,
or was that a high five?
I'm doing my O'Reilly thing. I got to give you the pen. If you've ever watched he does the pen thing. He's good. So, yes.
Bob Dole?
No, I'm Bill O'Reilly. So,
don't you think, Jason? Jason, don't you think that I understand what you talked about? You researched tools, you researched technologies, you thought about the approaches, about what you want your voice to be. Now you have a backlog of 20 or more topics that you can discuss. Could you not have rolled out one topic in a very plain, simple, no nonsense format, not worried about a domain name, not worried about a platform, and got something started?
Maybe pick something that would allow you to transform to another platform if you wanted easily.
So the problem with that is that I'll throw out there is if you think about it and you look at the business landscape, especially where blogging's going, if you drop a concept and you like it and it kind of catches on, there are certain things that you have to do first if you want to ensure you brand integrity. So, hey, I create a blog called The Agile Factor and throw it on Blogger. Someone else then sees that, they go steal the domain, they steal the Twitter handle, they steal all that stuff, and then it impacts my business. It impacts my business success criteria because I can't have the integrated brand experience by having a Twitter handle that's tied to a domain that's tied to a blog concept. So if you don't think ahead, you can't seize those strategic opportunities. You
can as soon as you know the name that you want. You want theagilefactor.com. You recognize, I want this name. I'm going to name my blog that. Then you immediately go ahead and you secure the Twitter handle. You secure the URL. You do whatever.
No kidding, John.
There's a big difference between strategy, planning, and execution. And I think the big problem is most people get strategy and planning mixed up. Planning is where the details come in. Your strategy is to find a name that you like, that has a concept that you like, and you can apply it. You can go get Twitter handles and everything else. So you get all of that stuff. Then planning is how you're going to do those things, but you don't need to get into nitty-gritty details on the strategy. So from the strategy to the planning, the first planning, what was your minimal marketable feature? How could you have gotten something out the door quicker than 2 years? And would it have been worth it to you?
So I think for my own sanity, I need to coach my friend Amos to be a little bit more realistic for the time frame here. Okay. The actual time frame that I'm going to call actionable is from August of 2013 to November of 2013. Okay. So that's really August, September. That's really 4 months. Okay. Before August, that was just kicking around. And to be fair, I think from a motivational perspective, I had to do some soul searching to say, what's in it for me? Why do I want to have a blog that's branded independently versus, just contributing to a blog elsewhere? So, it took me 2 years to do that. So I think that comes down to really saying, if you look at your life, or even your career, how many things are you trying to do to where you could be successful? And are you truly trying to do too much? I'll answer the question. I think at one point I was all over the place doing stuff. And so I said, I need to narrow that aperture down a little bit, get a little more focused on what I want to do. And then finally I got to August. And once I did August, yes, I did, kind of kick it around. It wasn't a top priority. I'm sure if I had used a technique like personal Kanban, Pomodoro, pick one, they're all about the same. With a little bit more discipline specifically for the blog, I think it would have come out faster. And at that juncture, I think just because of some of the background I have, the way that I like to think about things a little bit up front is just what's going to happen.
If you were busy, if you're busy, you're busy. That's fine. If you weren't ready to bring out, to roll your blog out, to roll your ideas out to the community, that's fine. But if you spent that time actually planning, that's a problem.
I will share. I did not sit and have day-long strat sessions like Amos is trying to say I have. I'm gonna walk into the office.
Hey, did you make a bunch of estimates for it though?
No, I did not.
Good. I tried to sell a customer some estimates the other day. I told him, I said, I've got a whole box full of estimates. I'll sell them to you for $10,000. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, then why are we putting 10 people in a room for 8 hours and estimating? Because it's going to be more expensive than $10,000.
So how'd that go?
They thought I was nuts, but I am a little nuts.
So let me change.
Sidetrack.
Well, so let me change the subject a little bit to attempt to, redeem myself here. So, because the one thing that I think I can do, and I guess you guys can challenge me if you want to, is I've really, having thought and invested some time into thinking about the blog, the content, and its messaging strategy, at least in my opinion, and I'm the customer of the blog right now, it's my blog, I have a pretty good definition of what success is. And so the challenge I see with a lot of teams and even people who are working on personal projects is when they just kind of start doing stuff or they just start developing, they get into an environment where they lose focus on what that ultimate success criteria is, to where they can become demotivated.
How do you see that occurring? What tell me more about what you think happens. So you're saying that if someone goes in and they immediately start down the path of creating a product, creating a piece of the product, that somehow they lose focus on the vision for that product?
Well, I think that, and the other thing I think that happens, and this actually kind of goes along with where, Amos is talking about the difference between strategy and planning. I think if you're on a project or on a development team and it just starts a project, everyone comes together, there isn't anything out there, and you start with a vision. Now, the problem is once you start developing, if you're a developer, you have a hands-on keyboard technical role, you're into technical details of that product, and it is difficult to remain focused then on, well, what is the vision? How has the vision changed? What are the new features that are, being added to the backlog? We can debate how far in advance they should be added. But again, what are those? And most importantly, what is the business value that will be provided to the customers when those features are developed and delivered? And it's hard to do
will
that.
The customers care? So my idea is I would rather go with something really tiny, spend very little time planning, and throw it out there and just see what kind of response I get. Our blogs are very naive choices to really talk about here, but like mine, I threw it out there, and nobody has said, "Oh, your blog's so ugly, I don't even want to read it." Nobody cares. They care about the content of the article, and whether the contrast of the text on the background is readable or not, and that's really about it. Yeah, so that's what I decided that's all I care about, and I quit worrying about how ugly it is.
I'm trying to get us away from the blog topic here because I think it is a very trite example.
Yes,
it is. It's too simple. And even if you think about the overtones of complexity theory, which is why it's important to think about, it's important to not lose track of that in the Agile mindset. A typical software development project is much more complicated and has a much more complicated feature set than a very simple text-based blog.
Okay,
so,
that's true. But what I hear you saying, Jason, is that it's not appropriate for the team to begin development right away and then allow requirements and additional information to be discovered via some sort of continuous process of evolving requirements or evolving architecture.
That's not what I'm saying. This is this is trying to attack me tonight.
No.
Everyone's coming at me from all directions.
I want to be clear about something. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to understand.
What I'm saying is that once you start developing a product or implementing the product and incrementally delivering capabilities to the customers, somebody needs to remain focused on the big picture and provide the awareness of that to everyone who's contributing to the effort. It's hard to do that.
That's right. It's not, the developers don't have to constantly be looking 6 months down the road at what the vision is. Their job is to be sharply focused on their sprint or their story or their day or their iteration or the work that they have in front of them at the moment. They should also have an overall vision of the project. That's important. Or the product, right? They should have some sort of idea about what it is that they're creating and what it is that they're developing. But that doesn't mean that they have to spend a great deal of time thinking about the vision and worrying about how do we get to the vision. I mean, there are other ways that we get there at specific points in the process that we're using. Maybe it's sprint planning or release planning, where we then take time to think about the vision, think about where we're going.
Yeah, and actually, the thing I want to draw attention to, what I've been coaching on a lot recently, is it goes back to what we talked about back in episode 23, where we talked about role overloading, or overloaded yoga positions, whatever we called it.
Right.
To say that, within the Scrum mindset, and also within Agile, there's the idea of the product owner, and the product owner's responsibility is to provide that awareness of the business context and to manage the backlog of stories and ensure the team has an understanding of those so that when a story is pulled into development, the product owner has advised the team what it really means. And so a challenge with many teams is, well, what if I don't have a product owner? What if I have a product owner that doesn't provide enough support? And that's the key risk then, to say that is that role being supported so the team always has a definition of what success is within its business context.
Amos, you looked like you were going to jump in with some questions or follow up for Jason on that.
I was, but then he rambled so long I can't remember what I was going to say.
One of the things that I can.
Well, Amos, ask me some questions. I'll write a blog post about it since I have a platform to do that now.
Yes. I think my big thing is I want to make sure that people don't spend too much time in planning. I think that they're often, especially in companies that are just trying to convert to Agile, there is a tendency towards we need to plan a lot because they're stuck in that waterfall method of everything needs to be planned out. So we need to get away from that, and I would like to just make sure that they're talking about overall feature sets and not details.
I'm sure there are some camps that would advocate for no planning whatsoever. There's people out there, I'm positive of it, that would say
Valve,
never plan, just execute. And then there's people that are
time out. Okay, let me attempt to bring some reality back into the discussion. So you're in an enterprise, okay, big company, multiple teams, okay. Well, let's keep it small. You got a few teams, okay, but that organization has imposed some type of a structure to allow them to execute their business. So, Amos, you're on the team. You're building a web app. It's out there. It's cool, but it has to integrate with services and things that are provided by another team. So you have to come to the table and you have to say, when is that identity management service going to be available that I can consume it? And at that juncture, make a decision about, well, do we build our own or do we wait for the enterprise service? Or how do you go about that if you don't do any planning?
No, I didn't say don't do any planning. I think that's crazy too.
So
anytime your product has to interact with someone else's product that you're both building at the same time. So it's not a product that's already out there that you need to interact with. There's nothing clearly defined. You're going to need to be communicating. And I think that the communication is more important. And if you need more planning for communication, then I think that something's broken. You need some planning, but it still should be pretty minimal. Like what can we don't need to spell every single thing out necessarily in the contract between your web service and my application that's consuming it.
Right. So what's the right amount or the correct amount of planning? And I know it differs based on who you are and what you're doing and what your situation is.
How often are you deploying?
But what I was asking,
that's the only thing that matters.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to get in the weeds here on it. I think I need to challenge John and Amos, unless you guys know it. I mean, this is a scaled Agile discussion to really talk about how, because the example I used is talking about, an architecturally dependent change or an architectural shared service that would be developed that then can benefit all of the other release trains that are being executed within the scaled Agile framework. There is a way to do that, but I'd be interested to get Amos's feedback on it because it does look like there is a fair amount of planning and coordination involved.
The question is, if you have people that are doing no planning, you have people that are doing tons of planning, and basically all they do is plan. There's some happy medium. You mentioned scaled Agile as an approach for this in a big enterprise, that there needs to be some scaling of Agile. But it differs, right? It differs by what you're doing. It differs by what you're dependent on, what the other dependencies are onto you. So you need to evaluate that and then come up with, what do you need to come up with? I think ultimately it's a short-term release plan with some longer-term vision of where you want to get to with a release plan, so that you have some sort of, not framework, not some sort of guidelines that you're trying to work towards, so that people can have some amount of information about where you're headed.
Right. And so at what level is what we're trying to figure out? What how do you recognize the level of where you've gone from just enough planning to too much? Because we've talked about last responsible moment, minimal marketable feature, and those things. And I think it's dependent on what you're doing, your feature, your teams, who you're interacting with. But it comes down to I've communicated enough with you that you understand what's going on. And that's about it. And then we don't need big giant architectural documents. Whenever you are trying to work with a web service, can we come up with a couple scenarios and look at inputs and outputs, and that's it? You don't need to tell me exactly how I need to build the backend.
Well, and the other thing that I guess to clarify, and we did mention Scaled Agile briefly, but even taking Scaled Agile out of the discussion, just at a high level, you guys are talking a lot about the planning to actually facilitate, hands-on keyboard software development. Let's take a step back and say, what if I'm trying to do planning to run a technical business or an IT shop? So
that's called strategy.
And this is a software podcast, an Agile podcast. So let's keep it focused sharply on software and Agile.
Okay, so you don't want to talk in the IT space?
No, I don't give a rat's ass about that on this podcast.
Wow.
Well, although I would say that is a dependency to being able to write software.
I agree with Tice here, John. I think you should sit down and let Tice talk.
I am sitting down.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, so you look at the IT roadmap. Okay, so where you have to do some level of planning to say, okay, this group is going to work on, the identity management service. Then these groups are going to work on applications that are going to be dependent upon the identity management service. And at that juncture, we talk about no estimates, but okay, well, to manage expectations of my stakeholders in the business, I have to say that identity management service needs to be available within a timeline so that then these services can consume them and they can go out to market, or these apps can consume it. So
as long as you have a Gantt chart, it'll be done right.
Well, so it's okay. I know you're laughing, but and again, that's the world that I live in. So I guess I'm saying, what's the plan there? Because that's you have to do that to run an enterprise. Otherwise, every system becomes a silo and it becomes non-sustainable.
Why does it become a silo? Like, that's the thing that I've seen in a lot of like big projects with lots of planning is that they become silos, and the big problem comes down to teams communicating with each other. I've actually got this in my pick is Conway's Law, is that your software, the design of your software directly mimics the organization's communication.
Yes.
No, I agree with that. That's a great.
And the quality of the software is very dependent on that. So I think I prefer constant communication with all parties involved over big upfront planning.
And Jason, I hear that you're advocating for this planning because there's a dependency that your project has to have this something that the other group is creating.
And again, if you look across an IT portfolio, you see trends and you see common capabilities and business needs. So at that juncture, if you build a unique application for each duplicated business need, you're investing money in a way that it could be better spent. You could spend your money better elsewhere.
So you were talking about no estimates, and you were pretty excited about that. It seemed like a week ago, and now we're talking about planning to the point that I need to know exactly when that's going to be done. Well, if I have the no estimate thing going on, and I can get a few stories in there, how much big planning do I need? I would rather have group consuming and group producing this API discussing like daily. They should have stand-ups together. They should be having a weekly meeting where they let each other know, hey, here's how things are looking right now. Here's problems that we're running into in order to provide this API, or here's problems that we're running into trying to consume the product that you have so far as it is, and let that product grow to the needs of both sets of people instead of trying to predict their needs a month ahead of time.
The problem is, Amos, if you look at a large enterprise, that doesn't scale well. I mean, so sure, if there's two teams working together, I've tried it and I've seen it break down. So, and not to say that it can't be done. And again, frameworks like Scaled Agile speak to this. Scrum of Scrums is a construct that can help with it, but if you're in a very large environment, it's hard to do. And at that juncture, I think no estimates is a practice that's great for, again, hands on the keyboard development. But when you're truly trying to forecast how you're going to manage IT investment and IT spending, there's some level, because you're talking staffing, you're talking, how many people are going to be focused on this, and you have to manage expectations. So I don't think I can, at this time, I can't communicate what that right amount of planning is, but I think I'd hope there's agreement that some level of planning needs to be in place to run the business of that magnitude.
I think that we agree that there's some level of planning no matter the size of the business.
One of the things
from one person to 1,000 people, there is some level of planning, but I'm trying to get to what is the responsible level of planning and when are you wasting your time?
So Amos has just become a hypocrite and completely invalidated this argument because all of my planning from my own site, which is my own, it's not even a business, it's a not-for-profit business, was completely justified.
I said, when have you gone past the responsible amount of planning onto now I'm wasting my time? And that's the problem.
Well, let me ask you this. Who has the right to define that?
That's what we're trying to find out. It's not who has the right, because it's not about who has the right. It's about what is right.
It's about value to the customer. What is the right amount is based on what you need to do to deliver value for the customer. If you have a big organization,
I'm going to
planning. Hold on a second. Let me talk. If you have a big organization that's planning two parallel projects, right, and one depends on the other. If we plan ahead of time, project A is going to arrive at their end state here, and then project B is going to link up to them at that point, and we plan for that, how many times does that work? No, like never. But we planned that it was going to happen. Why didn't it happen? Instead,
because we didn't communicate.
If we communicate, if we stay hooked together, if we swarm on stuff, so if project A falls behind, Project B can't possibly work without Project A. It's in our architectural documentation that says we need this thing. Why not take the people from Project B, help them advance Project A to the point at which Project B can keep going?
Been communicating.
There are so many assumptions in that nirvana that you just described. And
so again, there are so many assumptions in the planning document that you create.
Amos, I want you to get beyond the document.
I don't care about a document. What I'm saying is there's a lot of assumptions in any planning. Right?
This way, I think you and I, again, are saying very much the same thing, but in different language.
Is it easier to overcome 4 assumptions or 5,000 assumptions? The longer you plan, the more assumptions you have.
Well, so what I was going to say, and I apologize to John for cutting him off, is really, I think the planning is a dynamic activity. And what's important is that there's a sufficient amount of planning for everyone involved to understand what success is.
Okay.
And at that juncture, well, that's going to be different. So, okay, hey, I was going to work on a block. I wanted to sit at home and put my feet up on the couch and think about it for a little bit before I just did it. But that's what I needed to do to be successful. Because it said I got some goals, and Amos, I even have a blog strategy. You'd love it. It's a 1-page document, but it has defined objectives. It has what I want to do. It even has some metrics that I'm going to try to attempt to measure myself to. Okay,
Can you share that with me?
Sure, I guess I can share it.
If you don't mind, you don't
put that on the
have
blog
to.
Post. No,
it would be interesting.
So, and again, it's something there, but that's something because it gives me the term some people use. They say we need a North Star. I mean, this is a detailed North Star, but it's a target to hit. And again, for me, that works. I think in a team environment, there's the need to have a dialogue to ensure that everyone, customers and team, have sufficient information so they can be successful. And in the spirit of Agile, I think there's the need to talk about trust, to say that because we should be working in a trusting environment, maybe we could decrease that amount of information that we might think we need. So, you know what, we're going to trust our development team to say, you know what, we haven't seen all the details behind what makes you think you can get this done in the release. but we're going to trust that you're going to try your best. And the same goes on the customer side too. So that's
what works better? Constantly communicating expectations back and forth, or planning a lot ahead of time?
See, I think it's different because I see every plan. And again, Amos, I think we need to get you out of architecture 1.0 and get you in the architecture 2.0, where this idea of, architecture is stuff that you throw on the wall, the plan, you print it out, you throw it on the wall or on the shelf and no one looks at it. That's not what it should be. I mean, the plan should be dynamic. So, I mean, your plan should be it should be a story map of what you're trying to do, where you could break it down. Or it could be, prioritized release train backlogs for the Scale Agile framework, where you could make changes dynamically and you could be responsive to change. But at that juncture, when you're responsive to change, you're also being upfront with managing expectations of both the team and the customer about what changes.
I'm just saying that if you plan too far ahead, you have wasted work. As those changes come in and you change that plan, then anything that you changed about that could have been waste. Now, possibly there are things that you learned in that planning, right? But how much of it is waste?
But again, and I think this is where I think maybe it's a project that, if Jason and Amos want to plan to do a project ever, I think this discussion about what is strategic planning and then really what is executional planning is something to probe into deeper.
Jason, we'll talk after this. I think that we should do a small project together. I think everybody on this Agile Life should do a small project together.
I want to videotape the execution of the project because I think it's going to be an award-winning documentary.
Maybe we should do a documentary and put that up.
Let me say,
you missed the opportunity to see the wall of architecture. We have a wall of architecture. We'll have to show it to you sometime. So
let me say, scary. Amos, I think that the opinion that Jason is representing tonight is an opinion that I often come into contact with in my travels and my work as an Agile consultant. I hear a lot from people about if I don't plan, if I don't have a Gantt chart, if I don't have a schedule, if I don't have a series of dates, that I can't run my business. And I get that, and I understand the need and the desire for executives and C-level folks to have some dates to shoot for and budgets to plan for, right? We are trying to figure out as a group and representing these different opinions and different ideas and backgrounds, how we can find a middle ground that works for everyone. So I can still have just enough planning for the executive to spec out the multi-million-dollar budget for the year, while also not backing development teams into a corner with, you have to hit this date and you have to deliver this scope and on this time and all of those things.
Well, ultimately, it's all about the bottom dollar. And I don't want to stop us from getting a bottom dollar. And I want that to maximize that bottom dollar. So if I am spending too much money on time and resources and people, because they're not resources are different. If I'm spending too much of that money on planning, then I have not maximized my bottom dollar. So where do the points of that graph meet of planning and profit so that I can figure out how to maximize my profit with the least amount of planning?
I want to know. I wish I knew, because if I could bottle that up and hand it to you, I would be a millionaire.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how I can sell estimates for $10,000 a box.
Wow. And to give credit where credit is due, I would challenge you guys to do a precursory review of the Scaled Agile Framework by Dean Leffingwell. It speaks to a lot of what we're talking about here. And especially, John, it solves the whole, how to go up and down the continuum problem of, how do you provide dashboard level visibility to high level stakeholders who want to know what's going on, manage both development and architectural dependencies, out to the appropriate groups that do that work, link everything together so you can deliver with less risk. And
most date timelines that I've ever seen in my career have been bullshit anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Amos. Look at the Scaled Agile Framework. It's different.
Here's the issue. You have a CEO who comes in and says, I want this in 2 years. And you have a guy below him who goes, holy shit, I know these people, they never make a deadline. So I'm going to tell them we need it a year and a half. And the guy below him says, I'm going to tell them they need it in 8 months. And then the team gets it and they're like, this is freaking impossible. And you've given them this giant design document and not allowed them any leeway.
So my simple statement is, again, Agile is all about being able to respond to change. And I think what's going on here, let's apply the same mindset to planning. Amos, what you are talking about is traditional project management, good old, I'll bring it up, the PMI guys, we got to love them, but some of their practices, and there's a lot of people that learn them, they're very classical, and it's based upon time boxing and stuff like that.
And they still say that they're agile.
Well, you have to, those folks, they need the benefits of the learning that by talking to coaches like us, we can provide. But call that version 1. Version 2, I think, is really where we're seeing this evolution more at the team level, moving into this idea of saying, do we need to do, point-based guesstimates, to use John's favorite term? Maybe we don't. We use cycle time. That's more accurate, okay? But again, that's a different practice. It's an evolution of how we do planning and how we manage, the project management triangle and how we understand it. And then really where we're going, how we grow this, how we scale this, let's call that planning 3.0. And that's really where, again, there are other concepts out there, but I think the most mature one, scaled agile. It makes a lot of sense. It's a great framework. And if you're in a big enterprise where you've got lots of people working together as part of a product line, it's a great framework. It's not relevant for every environment, but guess what? There's a lot of reuse if you've got something where it doesn't work. So check it out. But understand that that's the gamut. There's this huge spectrum out there, all related to planning. And so if you're in an environment, I would encourage you to take a step back, look around, try to figure out who you're working with, and to learn how to be able to respectfully interact with them so you can have a discussion that aligns to their expectations.
The scaled agile framework is a very interesting thing, Jason. You brought it up a couple of times. We need to have an episode on the scaled agile framework, and I have a co-host in mind that I would like to bring in to help us have that conversation. One of the things that I want to point out with the scaled agile framework is that if you talk to Mr. Leffingwell about the scaled agile framework, I think he's proposed that as kind of an idea. It's a theory. It's a theoretical model for how agile can scale. There's little evidence to this point, and little hard evidence even further to how much of that works. And they're still feeling some of that out. I mean, there's
little evidence that small team agile is any different than large team, like enterprise cross giant company agile. There's nothing that says that it's different other than people having such fear that they're unwilling to try it. I haven't seen giant companies who have actually gone at it wholeheartedly and tried it.
I've been in a couple of companies and a couple of organizations where they have tried that. They look at the scaled agile framework, they look at the theory behind it, and they try and adapt what they think is going to work for them. It's not one of these things where you can plunk down the scaled agile framework and say, I'm going to run this playbook to the letter and I'll be able to scale agile. It just doesn't work that way, right? So
no, because it's too complicated. So I mean, again, there's not scaled. What is the scaled Scrum framework? Ooh, let's go create that, John. There we go.
We already talked about
the
how
URL.
I know, but it would. But the case, it would never work. And so I think that's what's great about the firm, because you could. It's number one, it's brand new. So in terms of empirical data to prove if it works or not, it's out there. Or sorry, it's not out there yet because it's new. So I think the reason I talk about it a lot is if you're in a large environment, that's kind of where I'm focused right now, there's a huge learning impact from simply learning about it. And you know what? You'll say, you know what? I don't agree, or I do agree. And from there, you can chart a course to success that's relevant for wherever you are.
I agree that what you're saying, Jason, it's something to explore. It's something to look at. It's good. It's a good model to evaluate and see how it fits into what you're doing, and to use it to help guide yourself and to guide decisions that you're making for your team, and to kind of use some of those theoretical ideas to spur thought, spur thinking outside of the box on your team.
Well, and the thing that I've coached a lot on recently, and it even goes back to what I was saying about, when a team is so focused on development, they may lose track of the business context of, what this feature I'm working on right now, what does it really do for the business? I mean, is it going to bring revenue in? Or is it going to improve the user experience? What's the what if? Or, what's the so what? So what Scale Agile does, and again, this is more from my friend Amos, who, if you learn it, it helps you understand how a way that you can track dependencies and understand the linkages between what you're doing on one team and how it relates to other teams that, may be working on things that are related to the overall feature set that you're contributing to. And it's well thought out. It's well put together.
Amos, how would you wrap this up?
What, the whole episode?
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. I really, I think most of our episodes come down to better communication. And I think that if you need a lot of planning to do that, I feel sorry for you. But it doesn't matter how much planning you do. It's all going to come down to whether you have teams that communicate with each other internally and externally. So if you have an organization that has multiple teams and those teams aren't communicating, you're going to have problems. If there's one guy up above who's handing out design documents or lots of plans, and he's the only guy that sees that overview and is the only guy that's communicating between teams, you're going to have the same problems. So let's just concentrate on our communication skills.
I think it was a military general that pointed out at one point that plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. And I think what that general meant by that is the act of collaborating, communicating, thinking about the problem is very, very valuable to you and to your project. But once you hit that battlefield, man, that plan is completely out the window. But having thought through how you got to that plan or how you thought about that plan is very important to making tactical decisions and having knowledge from which you can make those decisions and having connections to people that you can collaborate with as you're on that battlefield working together. Jason, I'll give you the last word on the subject.
Oh, you got to pull around. I was going to say that, John, that's the idea of, from Agile, why, back in, Agile 101, remember we had the story types. You could have a story, you could have an enhancement, and you could always have the spike. So, maybe a spike is a way to kind of play around and learn something that makes you more able to react to change. The simple way I would sum this all up is a couple episodes ago, I remember I put a plug out for Jürgen Appello's book, Management 3.0. Subsequent to that, I got asked to facilitate a book club in my company about Management 3.0. And one of the things that Jürgen talks about in the book that he makes a strong emphasis on is one of the best ways to help motivate employees and energize people is through the power of intrinsic motivation. So to capitalize on intrinsic motivation, which of course is being motivated through non-material things, but the way to capitalize that on is everyone needs a definition for success. Everyone needs a target that they can track towards. They need a North Star they can look to so they can see where they're going. And so I would encourage, if you're out there, do whatever amount of planning is required for you to know what that successful journey looks like.
Well, folks, you heard it here. That is our take on planning this evening. Thank you guys. Yeah, ship it.
For those that do not know, there was absolutely zero planning done to put together this podcast episode, so you can give us some feedback on that. Some episodes we've had more planning put into the structure. So
wait a second, Jason. I think that's a miscarriage of the truth.
Because we had a lot of communication about this episode.
And
remember, I said
Jason,
last night, words are hard.
You did say that, Amos, but Jason, you have been teasing the the State of Agile 2013 survey.
Yeah, so
so there was a bunch of upfront planning to go into. That's what we were going to talk about tonight. And then all of that upfront planning we had to throw away because version 1 can't get a freaking link right.
We don't know what that is. So for our friends at version 1, that's where I received an email on November 7th that contained a link to the 2012 State of Agile survey that we were excited to talk about, and we realized it wasn't updated. So we look forward to talking about that when it comes out. And to really talk about our friends in the Scrum community, I tried to get my co-host to think about talking about the State of Scrum survey that came out in July of 2013. That's 42 pages long. But unfortunately, Amos said that would require too much planning and reading to get ready.
He said reading. Yes, he did say reading.
Well, reading, because Amos doesn't like to read big documents. So,
I love to read big documents like War and Peace and Ender's Game, but
Ooh, Ender's Game. Have you seen the movie?
Into empirical data about methodology.
Not bad.
To the credit of the Scrum guys, they actually put together a nice survey. It's got some interesting data. Some of it aligns to the Agile survey. Some of it doesn't.
Okay.
I do have it pulled up. I do appreciate version 1's survey results being in nice, beautiful infographics instead of huge type document. But I plan on reading it. It's just that at 8:00 the night before till tonight when we're recording is not enough time for me to read 42 pages.
Amos, we already reviewed that survey on the podcast.
No, we did not do State of Scrum.
Not State of Scrum, 2013, the Agile survey. The seventh annual Agile survey we already reviewed.
So version 1 just announced the winners for those who contributed to the 8th survey. I didn't. John, did you win? I didn't win. Sorry.
I never got asked. I contributed to the 7th annual.
Oh.
I don't know why I wasn't asked.
That's because you didn't select version 1 as the tool that you use.
Quite possibly.
From last year.
Okay, guys, let's do our picks. We're running short on time. I want to point out I've taken a lot of crap from Tice about how governed we are with the number of picks that you can have. So Tice, just for you, because I like you, because I love you, I've removed the upper limit on the number of picks that you can have.
John, guess what?
I have like 50.
We completely removed that limit. So if you think you have any supreme governance power, I'm sorry. We need to talk about Agile Rock Band too, because it really talks about how you build an Agile coaching practice. And it really, with everyone working together, no one being in charge. So,
having removed the governor on the picks, I would like to go to Amos King because he seems to have a truckload of them.
All right, so my first pick is just from our pre-show talk. I think that people should check out codeclimate.com if they're doing any Rails. And I want to say that they added JavaScript recently, but I can't remember. Basically because your code quality sucks. There's always room for improvement. And it's just a nice little interface that tells you like A through F, makes you feel like a student, gives you like a 2.4 grade point average or a 4.0. So it's just kind of a neat little metric thing, and it points you to some places where you can get improvements. There's a book called Get Clients Now that a friend of mine named Evan Light loaned me, and it's just a fantastic, enlightening book about making a plan. Actually, that's about 28 days to get you more leads and more clients. And then I have people are going to complain about how many of these picks there are, and then we're actually going to have to put a limit. How to Build Great Products by, I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm just going to not say it. It's a.
Let me try it. Slava Akhmehecht.
Oh, maybe that's pretty good. It's a blog post about 3 different buckets whenever you are planning. Any features that come in go into 3 different buckets: distractions, showstoppers, or game changers. It's very interesting. Keep the distractions out of the way. Conway's Law, we already talked about tonight. And we have created an IRC chat room called This Agile Life on the Free Node Network. So I'm kind of in and out of there throughout the day. I know that our other co-host, Craig Buchek, and John Sextro has been there. We didn't invite Tice, so we can keep it nice. Anyway, if you guys ever want to hang out, ask some questions about Agile, we're in there, in and out. So
I spend my day in multi-hour architecture meetings.
That's a perfect time to not be paying attention. Okay, and that's it.
Very good, Damus. Thank you. Good picks.
Wait, one more pick.
Okay.
My co-host Jason, because he's fantastic and still has a smile on his face tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, how nice. All I've done is debate this week. So I'll be real simple. Since I finally got my blog up, I'll plug it, www.theagilefactor.com. And I just started. So like I said, I do have a backlog. I have some writing to do, as well as a couple other ways we're going to share some information. So, but hey, we'll put some stuff out there and we'll see what happens. So that's it.
Very good. Thanks for your pick, Jason. My pick tonight is something called New Relic. I don't think we've ever had it as a pick before, but we've been working on some stuff at work related to performance and scalability and monitoring. And I looked into New Relic, and it looks really good. It's a application performance monitoring tool. It seems really easy to use. I thought I would just give them a shout out because they have a good looking website. I also heard about the CEO of. I heard the CEO of the company talking on another podcast that I listened to, which is what pointed me towards their site to check them out. And I thought I would just give them a shout and a pick, since it seemed like a good tool.
It is a good tool. I like it.
Awesome. All right, guys. It's been a wonderful debate. It's been a heated debate. I appreciate your differing viewpoints and opinions. Thank you for joining me on the show tonight. Jason Tice, where can folks... We already know about
the Agile Factor. TheAgileFactor.com, or on Twitter now at The Agile Factor.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
It's not Tice Thoughts anymore?
No, we changed it.
Nice.
I was surprised that Twitter let me do that. So,
nice.
You could change your...
People can't get to your old tweets, though.
Well, no, it changes your whole history. But whatever. I don't have that many out there, so...
Therefore, you don't have to plan as much about what your Twitter handle is going to be.
Yes, but again, someone can squat on a Twitter handle. We all know that happens. So.
Oh, yeah.
I've got all 4-letter Twitter handles.
Except for you also have ADCron. And I think that's where people can find you on the internet, right, Amos?
Yeah, GitHub or Twitter at adcron, ADKRON. And my blog is dirtyinformation.com. And as always, don't expect it to look pretty.
We won't. Guys,
now I can be found in This Agile Life on Freenode.
Yeah, check us out on Freenode, the This Agile Life chat room, IRC
we have
room.
6 reviews on iTunes.
That's awesome.
At 5 stars.
Well,
three people actually wrote reviews. 6 people voted 5 stars.
Not everybody has to give us 5 stars, but it's great when you do that. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the reviews. Please keep them coming.
And I'm not above cheating. So
0.
I'm not above cheating. So if we can get, let's say, if we can get 100 reviews by the next episode, I will randomly pick one of the reviewers and I'll give them a $10 gift certificate.
I think you should give, if we get 100 reviews, I think you should give Jason a big wet kiss.
Oh, God. We're going to, please.
Yes.
All right, guys, that's it for tonight. You can find me on the web at my blog, johnsextro.com. You can follow me on Twitter at jcsextro. Please follow the podcast on Twitter at This Agile Life. And you can check out our website for more information about the show, for the show notes at thisagilelife.com. Thanks for listening and keep living this agile life.